A symphony must be like the world, wrote Gustav Mahler. It must contain everything. It's the Rolls-Royce of musical concert forms. Any composer in the last 300 years worth his salt has aspired to write a symphony. You might even say the symphony has shown the orchestra how to speak. In crude terms, a symphony is a generic form of music where all the orchestra plays together, as opposed to a concerto, which foregrounds an instrument or a group of instruments against the rest of the orchestra. The word itself derives from two ancient Greek words, together and sound. The symphony had rather humble origins in the early 18th century. The start of the classical period was a short, string, three-movement piece, sometimes used as interludes for the hugely popular opera. Joseph Stamitz, who ran the fabled Mannheim Orchestra, extended the form, adding an extra movement and wind section to the genre. All of which sets the scene for Haydn and Mozart to expand the scope and size of what would come to be known as the symphony orchestra. In concert halls across Europe, this new form of concentrated orchestral action was a real hit for concertgoers. London paid Haydn huge piles of cash to come to England's capital with more symphonies. He ended up staying 4 years and adding his final 8 to a total of 104. The musical giant to stand on these giant shoulders was Beethoven, who dominated the form. Beethoven's symphonies are mighty. Even his humble first symphony is longer than most of Haydn's. However, Beethoven does wait till he's 29 before writing that first symphony, aware no doubt keenly of Haydn and Mozart's legacy over the former. Beethoven's third symphony is larger still, considerably larger, and has appropriately maintained its nickname of Eroica, the heroic symphony. By now, Beethoven is articulating political and philosophical insight that makes the music feel important, rather than just being sugar candy for our ears. The symphony articulated that importance and meaning. When Beethoven writes his 6th symphony, he describes an entire adventure in the country and adds a 5th movement. It's interesting that this is the period of classical music where the least symphonies were written overall, and that's because Beethoven was writing his, and no one else dared to. By the time of his 9th symphony, the form has grown more gigantic still, with a huge orchestra and a unique closing choral finale. Symphonies really had become the big beast numbers in the concert hall, the piece you generally finished your concert with. It gave full voice to the full orchestra, with more individual purpose than you get from a concerto, where the soloists and orchestra so often act as foils. Symphonies are almost always longer than concertos, with more movements. Your classic symphony is made up of 4 movements. The first, usually in sonata form, more about that in my sonata form video, is usually the longest, most concentrated movement, the one with a real hero theme in it. Medium to fast tempo, sometimes with a slow introduction. The second movement is usually slow, a pace for more tranquil reflections and a clear mood pivot from the first. Contrast is again provided by a third movement, normally in minuet dance form, amended by Beethoven via Haydn to a scherzo, which means literally a joke. So faster than the slow movement, more playful, but not too fast, so as to maintain contrast with our final section coming at you at the fastest tempo. This is the place to really thrill the audience, the movement in rondo form that keeps coming round, re-delivering its main theme, like the chorus of a pop song, which perhaps helps our flagging ears to send us home on a high. The symphony maintained its popularity right through the 19th century, with Schubert, Schumann, Mendelssohn, Brahms, Dvorak, Tchaikovsky all composing many of their greatest works in the form, with Mahler adding his 8th symphony, Symphony of 1000. Remember his containing everything quote? By now the performance could number in the hundreds, and works could contain 5 or more movements. Composers like Saint-Saëns adds an organ, but then back in the day, Haydn had added a piano to the end of his 98th. That's the great thing about a powerful generic form like the symphony. Its structures guide you, and yet give you the opportunity to try different things all the time, structure and variation. Symphonies' popularity maintained right into the 20th century, with Russians like Prokofiev and Shostakovich writing some of their own and the century's greatest works in the form. Shostakovich's 7th, the Leningrad, manages to express the desperate state of his hometown and the entire Russian nation under threat of annihilation from Nazi attack. At the same time, it also manages to critique Russian communist society. It's as if a symphony could express almost anything. Communism, a walk in the countryside, the siege of Leningrad. It was as if the symphony could contain the world.